great example of servant leadership. One of the fellows jumps in to help him.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
The screen of the computer is different.
Tim, can you assist that?
Yeah.
I need to resize that or something.
So I will talk about racism. Racism is a difficult topic to communicate to white and not to white people, here in USA or in Brazil. It is always a controversial topic. However, some assumptions have been spread in order to justify oppression, exploitation over specific such groups as African Brazilians and Native Brazilians. Unexcused to not share the wealth and keep the powers in the same hands forever. So, as Black and as Brazilian, I will speak from my first person perspective. I don't speak very well English, so I need to eat, and I will divide my attention between my papers and your eyes. Children and youth from my generation grow up with a lack of African representation. No toys like us, no movie or soap actor or actors to identify with, no children's heroes like us in our books. In contrast, we saw our people involved in violent episodes, poverty, and outside of school. Makes sense that only in 2010, the Brazilian census found out that more than 50% of the nation self-identify as African Brazilian. It's a little bit late. So I grew up listening that if I worked hard, I will accomplish anything I wanted. I unconsciously chose to play this meritocratic game. I was doing very well, no failures in my school life. Then, surprisingly, I did not get the school to get in the college. Of course, if I didn't make it, it was my fault. We, my family and I, did not realize that education in Brazil, the further you go, the way becomes a fool. I was ready to join the 91% of African Brazilians who are outside of the higher education. But fortunately, my father got a scholarship to a preparatory course for me. There I realized how far away I was from the university. To catch up in all the content I have never seen before in my school life, I had to attend to the course in the afternoon, at night, and go to the library in the morning, do the assignments. Happy end, the next year, I got approved between the 5th place in the journalism and communication course, that at the time had only 24 seats in our federal university. I was the first one in my family. At the first week in the school, a professor came and asked us to introduce ourselves. Name, where you come from, which school you attend. We found out that we are 3 from public school, only me as Black. I was called in our racist jokes, the Black Sparkle. But at the time, 8 years old, I had never associated my social condition to my skin color. I actually was very happy about the efficiency of the meritocracy system. Hard work equal accomplishment. Later, I started to ask myself, why we are so few here? Where are the other Black people, the Black younger, the Black students? Questions like why the white people don't need to go through what we did. This question was answered by other questions. How many African Brazilians have the condition to pay private education. How many of us could dedicate full time to study? Why the majority of white people do it easily? Those questions came late because the conception of race is irrelevant in Brazil. It is a myth, historical myth. Part of us Brazilian believes that racism is not a big deal. We are a rainbow nation. There is no racial discrimination. Typically, we explain inequality on basis of hereditary social class and income distribution rather than race. The proof that there is no discrimination towards each other is our miscegenation between three races: Amerindians, the descendants of African enslaved people, and whites. And also interracial relationships between masters and enslaved people prior to the legal emancipation. We are a nation of 200 million people. The native Brazilian represents 0.47% of the population. Among themselves, there are 305 ethnic groups. They speak 274 different languages. It's confirmed that the presence of 67 different uncontacted tribes in Brazil. The largest country with African people outside of the Africa. Brazil trafficked 7 times as many black enslaved people as were imported here in USA. At that time, the Catholic Church said that it's fair to enslave African people because you have no soul. Despite our inequalities, there is no official segregation in law. We are the last country to abolish slavery. Oh, sorry. But why we became the third largest white population in the world? Took place in Brazil an ideology of whitening through social mixture. It encouraged European migrants to come and live in Brazil and offer to them privileges such as land to work. These facts were determinant to establish who are the elite today in Brazil. On the other hand, they didn't allow no European into the country anymore. They also encouraged interracial marriage if they hoped that the population would keep lighter skin. After the end of slavery, without job, education, land, and family, most of the freedom enslaved people were turned to become vagrants, homeless, penniless. Over the last 3 years, the number of young black men in college quadrupled, but 91% are still out of school. 18 million blacks, half of the black population, are mostly absent of the position of power from all levels of the government, from the Congress, Senate, the judiciary. But we are higher ranks of the civil servants in the armed force. Less than 30% of Brazilian employers are black. Between 2004 and 2007, more people died murdered in Brazil than in conflicts involving Israelis and Palestinians, and ever in the Iraqi war. In 2011, 50,000 people were murdered in our country, more than 130 per day. 70% are black. Soap opera in Brazil is a cultural program. In English, it was translated as shadow of sea. Also, the trajectory of the character was the same as the real life of many Brazilians. In order to gain, you have to lose your identity. It means that there is a aesthetic that recognizes what is being beautiful, powerful, and educated. Usually, it is not related to African culture, it is mostly to European or white. There is a rule for blacks and whites in TV shows. Brazil has two big national contests of beauty. In one, the winner gets a one-year contract with an international agent of models. In the other is a advertising contract that usually lasts for the carnival time. I think you can guess from the slide which one you are talking about for black and for white girls. And these ways that we are inspiring our young black girls. I could go on and show how we approach in advancement, journalistic programs, movie or comedies. But the point I want to make here is the lack of opportunity for ourselves, blacks and natives, to tell our stories in media. The census shows that journalism in Brazil is one of the professions with the lowest proportion of blacks in the country. It is 15 versus 80% of white. It was only 2002 that you have the first black anchor in our broadcast journal. In 19, the well-known reporter Tim Lopes, that is black, he said, there is no one black reporter that behind the mask of the sympathy had not suffered discrimination jokes by white colleagues. Despite that scenario, the black movement have accomplished a lot. Racism became a no-bailed crime. Many affirmative actions are in place. For instance, the reservation of 50% of the sports in Brazil university for blacks, African, and indigenous descendants. The same thing you are struggle to have in the public service. Also, the number of independent media channels is growing, what means more space to spread information, history, culture, and awareness. Hopefully, less Brazilians, less African Brazilians will experience what people from my generation faced. Thank you. My special thank you also for Honda, who supports me a lot, and for one photographer from my city, College Márcio Vasconcelos, who shared this picture with me.
You listened Ivana, she discussed avoiding stereotype in Brazil regarding black. Now I would like to introduce Hena. She would come and she would discuss her topic related to global terrorism.
Stereotypes.
Yeah.
Avoiding stereotypes.
And I would like to pass this if you could just sign and write down your name and email addresses.
I just wanted to share with you guys that making this presentation was as difficult as reporting a story about terrorism of Pakistan, because alright. When Dr. Bill told us that we should choose a subject for this presentation, I went to Daya, my fellow from Turkey, and I told her, I was like, hey, let's do something about documentary for social change. And we started working on it, and I started talking to my friends in Pakistan, and a couple of weeks down the line, I realized it's not the topic I should do or I wanted to do. Because while I was doing some research on that, my attention was diverted what kind of news is reported out of Pakistan, and how does it look like to be someone who's living outside Pakistan and looking back at the whole country and what it feels like, what it looks like for someone who's not living there, who's not part of that society. So I think I owe it to the people in my country to talk about stereotypes. It's a very difficult subject, and I don't want to say something which I cannot back with facts. So I try to keep it short, and it's more about my personal observation than facts. So keep that in mind. Uh, According to the Global Terrorism Index that issued by Institute of Economics and Peace, which actually based on the data that's collected by University of Maryland, Pakistan is the second most affected country by violence and terrorism in the whole world. And it's not, the index was first collected in 2012, but since 2007, Pakistan is more affected, and it actually surpasses on the list Afghanistan and other countries. The first country in the world is Iraq, where there is a still war going on, and the second country is Pakistan. And as you can see, the violence has spread throughout the country. All these red spots are attacks, and the black spot is the one where in 2012 the largest and biggest attack happened. So what we can see is that the terrorism is not limited to the tribal areas or northern areas. It has affected the whole country. It shows the magnitude, how overwhelming it is to actually cover this kind of subject. Education, infrastructure, government, military, police. There is not a single aspect of life or a department or a section or an institution that has not been attacked or affected by it. So the magnitude is huge. According to but there is one thing that's important about this map, and it's something I learned a few days ago, is that according to the global terrorism database that is established and collected and collated by University of Maryland, 90% of terrorist attacks, violent attacks that are done by extremist groups and militants, they are actually against their homeland or the country they live in rather than a foreign country. So this is something that I didn't know, and it definitely broke one stereotype, because I was thinking all the militant groups are always ready to attack the foreign countries, but actually what they're doing is like they're attacking the country they're living in or they are native of. Okay, so the coverage that comes out of Pakistan, it majorly, largely revolves around this question: is it terror related? When there are journalists, when they go to countries like Pakistan, the network they report to, or their editors or their producers or bosses, when they relay the news back, the question that comes back is like, is it terror related? That's how it moves on. Pakistan has a huge presence of foreign media, and the importance of the story of terrorism and foreign journalists being in Pakistan, you can realize that since 9/11, in 2001, there are 130 journalists who were residing in the country. That was right after 9/11, like the US attack, went for the war in Afghanistan. And now the number is 250. And at that time in 2001, there was 30 to 40 journalists who would come and visit Pakistan and then leave. Now the number, at one point in time, you can find 400 foreign journalists reporting for their countries, their home countries in Pakistan. And along with that number, a lot of organizations hire local reporters, Pakistani reporters, to relay news to their headquarters. So you can imagine how active it is. A lot of journalists actually say that, and not just foreign, local journalists, it's a very interesting time to be in Pakistan as a journalist, because a lot is happening and a lot can be reported back. So what's happening now? This is something I wrote in my application, which actually got me here on this fellowship. I wrote that a lot of abnormal stuff outside of the civilized world has become normal. So in Pakistan, what is normal is actually a new normal, which is not normal, it's abnormal. And the media, especially foreign media, is interested in that new normal. As you can see in this image, there is definitely a violent attack and people are passing by, life goes on. That's what a new normal looks like. So when the coverage happens, when people, reporters and journalists relay news back, it always comes to this point: terrorism versus everything else. The other kind of stories that they relay usually don't make it to the newspapers or television channels because there is a bigger story. But the problem is that all what there is? Is that all what should be shown? Is it all? I don't think so. There are a lot of big issues that are going on in Pakistan, and besides those issues, there is a lot more that's happening in a country. energy crisis. Okay, I will quote our energy minister. He said in a statement when he started a new power plant in the country a couple of months ago, he said, energy crisis in Pakistan is a greater threat to national security and economy than terrorism. There is not a single school or a hospital or a business or a house that is not affected by electricity. Imagine living in a country where if you live in a bigger city, let's say you will face 3 to 4 hours of load shedding, power cut down every day. So you're like, okay, fine, 1 hour there will be electricity, next 2 hours there will be not. But if you're living in a rural area or a small town, the chances are that the electricity will go out for like 16 hours or 20 hours. And the thing is, there is no one you can go and report it to, or someone you can go and you can say, hey, what's going on? Why I don't have electricity? So the situation is very bleak. And why I'm telling you this, I'll tell you in a minute. There are other issues that are actually very surprising. I discovered this issue a couple of years ago. I'm a Pakistani. I born in Pakistan. I live in Pakistan my entire life. I didn't know there is slavery. There is slavery in Pakistan. Hundreds and thousands of people are bonded slaves. Women, men, children, entire families, and the world actually doesn't know about it. I won't say the foreign media doesn't cover it. Some newspapers do cover it. I read stories in the foreign media, but it's not as big as violence. Okay, the biggest thing that I discovered, I was Googling reports from New York Times, Washington Post, Guardian, Independent, and all these major news organizations that I kind of go to. And I realized that one thing that's missing in the foreign coverage of Pakistan is our evolution, is our survival. Because in the middle of this madness of militant terror and everything, life goes on. People like me and Javeria, there is a strike, there's a bomb blast, we cover it, we think about it, we discuss it in the living room, and next morning we start our car and we go back to work. Every human, every normal person in Pakistan, an average Pakistani, is actually surviving it, living a normal life in US or any other normal country which is not experiencing violence of this type is nothing. It's like it's just a normal life. But in Pakistan, it's actually an achievement. And I think the world deserves to know that. And the world deserves to see this side of Pakistan as well, that not all the people are militant or crazies, but there are actually normal people who are striving for normal life. And some of these images are very iconic. Vote for peace. We had elections in May 2013 in Pakistan for the first time in like many decades. Nearly 60% people voted. In the last few years, we have seen, not in small cities, but in big cities, there are artists, there are young people who just go out and they paint graffiti like this. This picture, I got it from Karachi, and it's actually, it was posted, somebody painted it because there was a informal campaign going on around against gun violence. So the thing is, like, there is this silent appeal, there is this silent craving of people who want to live a normal life. But the thing is, like, nobody is documenting it. Nobody is actually highlighting it. And these are the images. We had elections in Pakistan almost every 5 years. Well, not almost every 5 years, but every once in a while we have elections. But people never do that. People never do that. Young people would never post this kind of pictures. And this year, and I posted my pictures. I didn't put it up because I don't want to look like a narcissist. But see, all these young people, my Facebook is full of printed thumbs. All my friends, they went, they voted, and they put their pictures up because they want other people to know that, hey, we want change. We want to have something new in our country. We are tired of what's going on. So it's amazing. And then now the political parties, actually, one of the tough realities which don't get out of the country is that our political parties don't have proper programs or anti-militant or anti-terrorism policies. They have their agendas. We're going to curtail poverty, we're going to increase GDP, stuff like that. But they never give us a proper mandate about how they're going to tackle militancy in the country. But the thing is, now they realize, this is a picture from a political party's rally in Karachi. Now they realize how badly people want it. How badly people want to get rid of the militancy in Pakistan, and now they are kind of like, okay, let's voice against them. Not all the political parties, because some of them are sympathizers, but a lot of liberal political parties, and they've been attacked for it. But there is this slow, very slow change that's coming. Biggest stereotype about Pakistan. I contacted 5 people whom I think are very seasoned veteran journalists who influenced hundreds and thousands of opinions. Half of them didn't reply because they didn't want to go on record. A couple of them replied in one word: extremists. The biggest stereotype about Pakistan is that they are crazed terrorists, fundamentalists, whack jobs, and killers. That's my professor, Alan Brown. He couldn't make it today, but I couldn't do this presentation without him, so I'm quoting him here. Um, and his opinion matters a lot. He's a very good journalist. Um, what it is like being a journalist in Pakistan, I've been telling you what kind of news comes out of Pakistan. It's not easy. It's a highly paid job, but it's a tough job to report a news and being a foreigner in Pakistan. This is the bureau chief of New York Times in Islamabad, Declan Walsh. He has been expelled from the country a couple of months ago because he reports news that are against certain institutions in my country and they don't like it. So he was expelled. But what I'm trying to tell you here is that there are a couple of things that a reporter needs to deal with when they're reporting in Pakistan. Number one is limited exposure because of security. You're not very mobile. You cannot get out of your barricaded house or office. Your mobility is very limited. So what happens is that when you are living in Pakistan, he has been living in Pakistan for 5 years, and what I know about him is that he said that your movement is limited. You go to a certain hotels, you meet a certain friends who can provide you enough security so that you don't get blown up or kidnapped or something. But what happens when you start living that kind of life or you start doing job in that kind of environment is that you get to meet only English-speaking elites and civil and government bureaucrats. These are the only two kind of people you get to meet. You don't get to meet an average Pakistani, or let me say that you don't come across unscripted encounters. You don't walk in parks, you don't walk on the streets, so you don't really get to have the sense of what it is like to be in that country. So what happens in the end is that they end up having a very limited exposure, and that exposure becomes Pakistan. Declan Walsh is an exceptional journalist. He's been living in Pakistan for 5 years. He has traveled a lot to different places where a lot of people don't dare to go, a lot of other journalists don't dare to go. So, and he's very respected in Pakistan. But the biggest complaint or the biggest hurdle in that whole process when the media coverage is coming out of Pakistan is that they have limited exposure and they think that this exposure is enough to say that Pakistan is an extremist country or most of the people in Pakistan are extremists, which is not true. I'm a testament of that. So that's how it goes. One more thing. I wanted to make it news centric, but I thought it would be nice to show you guys something. This is not for the sake of content, it's for the sake of reference. Um, this is a scene from a famous Sherlock series, which is very famous. It's a huge TV series of BBC. So here's a woman she's about to be beheaded. Sherlock will save her. He's a world-renowned detective. The reason I'm showing you this clip is that in that TV series, they say that this woman is beheaded in Karachi. They use the exact name Karachi. She has been beheaded in Karachi. Nobody knows that she has been saved by Sherlock. But what they don't know is that in Pakistan, especially in Karachi, we don't behead people. We don't behead people, and so far the Taliban hasn't become strong enough to behead people in Karachi. They were beheading people in northern areas, but they are Talibans, they are not Pakistanis. I don't know what to call them. But so my point is, and Sherlock is not the only series, because I am a huge fan of American TV series. In pretty much every TV series that touch upon the security, politics, on themes of politics, they give a reference to Pakistan, and it's always negative. So entertainment media feeds creates stereotypes, and they actually promote stereotypes. The gentleman is not in the audience today. I invited him. I came here, and one of the faculty members at ASU, he asked me, so do you guys speak Arabic? And I was like, no. 99.99% people in Pakistan have no clue. They don't understand Arabic. Our holy book is in Arabic, and we read it, but they don't understand it, and they don't speak it, and they don't write it. But this is a stereotype. Like a couple of other stereotypes are like we eat dates and olives, and we are more like Arabs and less like we are more Indian. Our speak, our language, our culture, but it's not that much Arabic. So this is the kind of stuff that you come and see when it comes to Pakistan. There is also a huge gulf in media coverage of this is the news cover of Newsweek, this is Newsweek Pakistan on the left, and this is Newsweek International on right. And you can see the difference of the coverage. And I'm not categorizing it as bad or good. What I'm saying is sometimes media choose what to show and sometimes they choose not to show. And other times they choose what to report in what context and what not to report in other contexts. So this is the difference. Like this is when the second cover came out. This cover, the international cover, came out first, and after a couple of years, Newsweek started their franchise in Pakistan. And when this cover came out, I was shocked. I was like, this is the difference in the approach, how certain things are approached. This cover was published when Pakistan suffered from floods, from huge floods, and most of the coverage that happened in the international media and even in the local media. I'm not saying the local media avoid feeding us graphic horror. They're big on it. They're also gory and red and all. But the thing is, like, this is a perspective. The coverage of floods in 2007 and after that in 2010, it was more about corruption, how aid wasn't coming, how government was performing bad and stuff like that. But actually, very few people covered the fact that the whole nation rose up to it, and despite the lack of foreign funding or aid, people went out of their way to help the flood victims, who were like in millions, hundreds and thousands of people. So that's what all it's about. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now it's Fernando from El Salvador, which will present his presentation, and he's the last panelist. I hope you are tweeting about our conversation, and yeah.
Okay. So, is it alright?
Just click here.
Yeah. It's fine. How's everybody doing today? I hope fine. My name is Fernando Aguilar, and we've been talking about very, very serious issues here. Thank you for sharing, Ivana and Nina. And I feel happy for being here today, and I feel actually with strength. You know, I got a haircut today, so that's good, and I hope I'm looking good too. And I was thinking about the story of Samson, you know, so I'm on the other side of the story. I got a haircut and I feel strength. I feel strong. No muscular mass, right? That's another thing. So, we're going to talk about communities in El Salvador, a little bit of history, because I'm a firm believer that we must look at the history, we must learn the history to understand the present and then project to the future. So we're going to start with a little bit of information about my country, real quick. This is El Salvador, right? On this image, you can see it. Right here, I'm going to click on it. As you can see, we're pretty close to the United States. And that's something interesting about migration, but that's not the topic right now. And this, even though it's a small country, we are divided in 14 states, let's say. And this is the people we're going to be talking about today. Now, and I left the circles in the presentation because it seems that people like circles. So I think that's all right, right, Dr. Bill? I think that's good. So when we talk about, I'm sorry, let me go back. So context. I'm going to talk about how people in my country, indigenous communities and local communities, have been massacred actually in the past. And I'm going to start with this 1932 massacre that really marked. It's a historic moment in my country because, according to some experts, about 40,000 people were killed in the massacres conducted by the military under the command of Maximiliano Hernandez Martinez, which is a general, right? And this is the area where, this right here is the area where the peasants and the indigenous communities they were fighting against the injustice in my country. It's like they were in an uprising. And This is an example of how some of the first people were executed publicly to convey a message of fear. And this is another example, and this is a very important figure. His name is Feliciano Ama. He was hanged publicly as well. And that conveys a message of terror, right? I mean, like, you shouldn't be opposing to the government. And that's 1932. Now we're going to jump to El Mozote in, this is more recent. And here in the image, you can see the bodies laying on the floor. This was a massacre in December 1981. And there's a video I would like to show you guys. I'm just going to forward it afterwards. The video speaks for itself, so that's perfect. Pay attention to the video and read the
Bueno, en ese tiempo nosotros no creíamos nada, no sabíamos nada de por qué lo estábamos sangrando, porque como era una comunidad de nosotros, no había gente organizada, ¿verdad? Podemos decir. Pero después hemos entendido de que ellos fueron a masacrar a la gente de nosotros que estaba en Oriente Medio para dar temor al pueblo, para que no se metieran a la guerrilla. Para matar a la cantidad de gente dándole temor al pueblo, que aquí no van a matar al pueblo. Y también pidiendo que nosotros colaboráramos. Lo que ocurrió allí fue porque a las 6 de la tarde del día 10 entraron la gran cantidad de soldados y encerraron a la gente por la noche. Y el siguiente día pues, fue cuando ya empezó la masacre. Estuvieron encerrados, entraron a la plaza en la madrugada, vivieron hasta las 7 de la mañana, haciendo fila en la plaza. Y después lo encerraron todos en la iglesia y nosotros las mujeres en la casa de nosotros, diciéndoles que no fueran a sacar una nariz porque iban a pagar.
And this is in part how there's another portion of this video that I am going to skip so we can have some time to debate. And this is how these people have been suffering in my country, and that's part of the context I wanted to show you so we can analyze how media treats these people and how there are ongoing issues in my country and challenges. So this is President Mauricio Funes right here. He's the current president, and that's actually a historic, something very, very good. He apologized in the name of the state of El Salvador for the massacres. That's the first president that has done that in my country. And well, here he is. And this was covered internationally as well. Oh, I'm sorry. This was covered internationally as well. This is the Herald Tribune. El Salvador's leader apologizes to indigenous people. And also, this is the statement released by the government, and it's very important to read this. From this day forward, we officially terminate our historical denial of the diversity of our peoples and acknowledge El Salvador to be a multi-ethnic and multicultural society. So this is very important to acknowledge because sometimes the image perceived outside of certain countries is that, only like big countries with a lot of migration are the ones that are ethnically diverse, and that's totally false. And the other thing I want to highlight here is this. It says terminate our historical denial, but we know that that's something we're still working on. So when we talk about media in this case, here's something, a newspaper I worked with, it's called El Faro. We're still talking about what we inherit from 1932, for example, and from our previous history, and how we talk about these people. And it says here, it's in Spanish for you. If you guys can read in Spanish, some of you may. It says here that 58.5% of the population in El Salvador, less than 30 years, know actually about these historic events. And we need to continue working on educating future generations and continue doing our work. This is an image taken when, I don't know if you remember about the Batum, or something called by the Mayans that the war was going to end and all that. So in El Salvador, there were people doing their rituals, and they were kind of joined that force, let's say, that was also highlighted by media and misinterpreted in many ways as well. And some people believe, in my country is divided as well, in terms of stereotypes, people believe that indigenous communities and indigenous people are just not educated, and that they are crazy with their rituals and things like that. So I think we have to work a lot in try to understand and make commitments, make real commitments. This is the other part of the video. I use it here in the media portion as a part of the documentary, but I'm going to skip it. And the current situation, for example, we talk about how indigenous organizations are working with to get jobs, for example. And also, this is something I wanted to point out related to language. This is an article that appeared in one of the biggest newspapers in El Salvador. It's talking about 7,000 languages in the world. How many deserve to be preserved? To me, the question doesn't even make sense. So it's like, when you take away the language of someone, it's like, if a language is not spoken, well, I understand that there are dead languages, right? But if there are people that speak the language. It's Nahuatl, the language of the people in my country. There are different groups, of course. There's Lencas, Chortis, and other groups. But the area I showed you is of the people, which are descendants of the Mayans. So this is about not understanding and not being willing to be open and try to work with the indigenous communities. To me, it's just disrespectful. And this is something that was published in a magazine at the university I graduated from. I actually helped design that logo, by the way. So, back in the days. So it's talking, I'm sorry. Oh, I made a mess. So it's talking about Nahuatl here, as you can see. It's talking about Nahuatl there, and it says, del Nahuatl nadie come. It's like, not many people try to learn the language. But there are initiatives, and at the bottom you can see una lengua viva. It's like, the language is still being spoken. So we really need to make commitments, strong commitments with the organizations in my country, and there are being in place. There are places in which you can go learn the language of these people, for example, if you're interested. So that's basically the message I want to convey. Understand, not have preconceived ideas, and yes, the world is pretty big, and the world is not only in English, French, or Europe languages, for example. I mean, because sometimes societies tend to see the world that way. So with that, I end my presentation, and I thank you very much, and we appreciate your questions.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask Hina, Ivana, and you three come, and if you have any questions for them, you can ask them. Just 5 minutes. So yes.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
A question for Ivana. There was an article in the Chronicle of Higher Ed yesterday that spoke about the fact that people are very uncomfortable talking about structural racism and cases in a university setting where people, voice their opinion that they felt, as whites, they felt uncomfortable having that discussion about a black person talking about white people. I was wondering, when you talk about the myths of racism in Brazil, what is the reverse in your country? Do whites or European descendants feel uncomfortable about the discussion, or is it under the table? Can you talk a little more about it from that perspective?
Yes. From my perspective, how I say what's they.
Yeah.
In fact, racial democracy is a myth for all of us, indigenous, white, and black people. It is a topic that we want not to discuss, and when we bring up it as public policy to recognize that we were exploited, and some of the resources still concentrated in the white hands for so long, not to share. It's like an heritage. What you have is a lot of the organization groups of white people, for instance, in the Senate, Congress, the Congress, Senate, and the judicial power and higher education, because even for to allow to pass the laws to give us the right, we have to fight a lot, because it is understood as a heritage property. It is not for all of us. It is this somebody one. It is not something that you want to share, that you want to keep.
I have a question for Hina. You mentioned last week how Taliban would influence policymaking in Pakistan, let's say when they wanted to start the music in buses, so it was implemented. But I was wondering how strong their influence is in daily policymaking.
Taliban don't have any official influence in policy making in any way. But it was interesting that you raised this question because I wanted someone to tell it. So a couple of weeks ago, Taliban issued a decree in Karachi. There's a growing presence of Taliban in Karachi, which is surprising because it's the largest city, urban. It has all kind of layers of law enforcement, police, rangers, paramilitary groups. Still, they have presence there, and they issued a decree that no music shall be played in public transport. And ironically and surprisingly, next day the traffic police issues an order according to which playing music in public transport is illegal because it causes inconvenience for the female commuters. And I was shocked, and I was like, I've been commuting in bus for years. Nobody ever give a damn, and I actually enjoy music in the bus. Like, it's hot, the ride is long, too many stops, it's always overloaded. I'd rather have some music, good or bad, instead of no music. But that's how it is. They don't have any official influence, but what it seems like, because I'm kind of out of touch what's happening on the ground, there's a growing fear about Taliban. The day I told you about that, I also mentioned they assassinated one of the police officers in Karachi. He was one of the big police officers, and he was known for going against Taliban. And he survived 2 assassination attempts. In one of them, they actually put a bomb in front of his house. He wasn't there, but this time they actually rammed a car in his convoy, in his police convoy, and he was assassinated. So that's how they're playing the fear game. Like, Fernando said, that they do public executions. In Pakistan, what Taliban do, they choose a big person who has a certain appeal, and then they go after that person. So it kind of, there is a cloud of fear now in Karachi. Everybody is asking, when Chaudhry Aslam, the official who was assassinated, he's gone, who's going to go after the bad guys? So that's how their influence works.
Ivana, do you think the Olympics in Brazil in a couple of years will have any impact on bringing to light more of the racism issues, because there'll be an international spotlight on the country?
We used to face that from the World Cup that is coming now in July, the World Cup. So what is happening now, there is certain place that they needed to construct, to build a stage, street. You can have a business here. That business was not dislocated, but the entire communities, usually black community, poor community, they are dislocated to build this kind of structure of the country. And you also, we portray women in Brazil as product, as a piece of meat,
As an object.
yes, as an object. So what you call the tourism of prostitution also is something that you face.
I've got a quick question. I know we're probably out of time. How can Americans, now that you lived in this country for 8 months or something, what can Americans do to become more involved in your countries and be more aware? I mean, you know how busy our lives are, how insulated we are, how insular thinking we sometimes are, but what more can be done so that we care about issues in each of your countries and more broadly?
Subscribe to daily news.
Okay, there's something I observed, and I was talking about this to Sandy. When I came to the US, I realized something wonderful. As a society, there is a collective sense of avoiding stereotypes and biases. If someone gives a racist remark or something, the other people frown upon that person. They're like, "You're racist, you're biased." This is the kind of thing that we don't have in Pakistan. But what I'm surprised is that despite having such strong moral sense in the society in general, the media somehow seems like insulated from that, in a sense, because the media is the one that's kind of feeding on to those stereotypes. During my research, I found one of the quotes about a foreign journalist. He actually spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, and he said that the problem with the coverage from Pakistan is sometimes the reporters don't realize that they are reporting on the war in Afghanistan, and they tend to bring Pakistan in it. So there has to be a distinction between, are you explaining Pakistan to Americans, or are you explaining the war on terrorism in Afghanistan to Americans? Sometimes the distinction is so blurred that people, the reader or the audience, tend to forget where the lines are drawn.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I wanted to ask a little bit more about the whole language issue, which I'm very interested in, even though I'm monolingual. And here I know that trying to make everyone speak only English is a way to distance people from their culture. But I know that there are a lot of efforts to promote, like, for example, the Navajo language in the university. And I wondered, Fernando, if there's an effort to do that in El Salvador.
Yes, actually, with this government that just got in office 4 years ago, and we just had elections a couple of months ago, they were implementing programs about teaching the Navajo language in schools. So yes, there are initiatives, and that, as in every country, I guess, there are people that oppose to certain things, and there are people that are in favor of certain things. And it's all right. I mean, you can have your opinion about any topic, right? And you can be in favor, you can be against. But there are certain things that, I mean, some arguments are better on certain sides. So that's the thing. But yes, there are initiatives. And now that you have given me the word, Sandy, thank you very much. I want to take advantage of this. no, I mean, these are some things that I brought from El Salvador and that I thought it would have been good to share. These are from the tourism office, so you're not gonna see any massacres here or anything like that. So if you wish, I mean, you can take this home. I mean, it has the map, and some of them are in Spanish, and I have a lot. So if you guys, whoever wants, I'm gonna leave them here. And this magazine, this is in English, and as you can see, there's a surfer. So there are great beaches in Salvador. And these are some other flyers if you would like. Okay, so I just wanted to say that. I guess I'm not promoting. I'm not promoting the tourism office, but I brought these things, so I guess they could be useful.
Thank you so much. I hope you learned a lot from our three presenters about their culture and the stereotypes. We still left with one last global conversation, and Wahida and Steven gonna talk about success stories from the developing countries. So please do come because this is the time for you to learn and to explore more about our cultures. We are here to let you know what is happening in our country. So don't miss it. It's on March 19th. Same room, same time with different presenters. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, take your leave.
You did a great job. You did a wonderful job. Now, when are you leaving and where are you going?